here? Yeah.
Hello, do you want to come join me? Come join. Hi all, thank you for being here with us this afternoon. Hang in there, I know it's the end of the last day, coming to the end of the last day, but it's been a really, really fantastic conference so far, so hopefully we can live up to the hype. We are here to talk about women's sport, but we believe that there is so much untapped potential from a marketing perspective within women's sport, and that's what we really want to focus on today with this session. So I think that the power of women's sport is very, very clear, and actually, you know, having sat in several of these sessions now, it's been fantastic over the last couple of days to hear some of the stories of where women's sport has got to and where we are with it. So we don't believe we need to sit here and actually tell you about the power of women's sport. I think you guys fully understand that. I think, you know, 2 billion people watching the recent Women's World Cup, 1.7 million tickets sold. It sort of speaks for itself in terms of the appetite out there. So what we really want to focus on today is actually how do we as marketeers tap into that passion point for women's sport? What can we do to more effectively market women's sport, which is essentially the theme of the conference today. So there are 3 key areas that we want to focus on. We want to focus on how we can embrace inclusivity. We want to focus on the authentically connecting with audiences, and also how we drive commercial revenue, because ultimately as marketeers, that is also what we're here to do. So I am Vicky Stickland, I'm here from CSM. We are a sports and entertainment agency focused in partnerships. I am delighted to be joined on stage by 3 brilliant business leaders here from Aon, Unilever and Mastercard. And I will let them introduce themselves, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing in women's sport, because it's so phenomenal, and actually all of their programs are very, very unique within women's sport. So Aon, you've been working with the LPGA for over 4 years now. Your risk-reward challenge sends such a powerful message in terms of gender parity and the fact that you have the same prize money for men and women. It's fantastic. We have Sinead here with us today. So Sinead, please tell us about yourself and your role.
Sure. So Sinead McEvoy, I'm the head of events and partnerships. From a partnership perspective, really focused on our LPGA partnership, the PGA Tour, and also the Ryder Cup, which is obviously upcoming. And then events, looking after our portfolio of events globally for the firm, so 2,000 plus events. So
2,000 plus events. So thank you for taking the time to be here today. You're a very, very busy lady. I appreciate that. If you did not see a Unilever personal care brand at the recent Women's World Cup, where even were you? Were you actually even watching? This marks a first for FIFA in terms of their partnership with Unilever. It's the first time they've worked with a personal care brand across their women's football, their men's football, and their esports portfolio as well. Chiro was a huge champion of getting that deal over the line. Thank you, Chiro. Well done. But please tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Vicky. Excited to be here. And I was looking at my designation. It seems to be a bit of a mouthful. There's a lot of stuff in there.
That's why I'm letting you do it yourself.
Yeah, I'm just going to focus on this thing. So essentially, I look after media and digital for our personal care portfolio. I'll just stop at that. That's the day job. There are, you know, every other day I get something new added onto that portfolio. But essentially, that's what I do. I was involved with our FIFA partnership, as was you know, a brilliant team that we had. And it was the first time that we've done this at Unilever. Exciting times, and what makes it really exciting is that I was in the audience for the last 3 days, and I'm essentially from media, and you know we love our share of voice and share of impressions and share of this thing. But if I were to look at one thing which really had the highest share of mentions over the last 3 days was really the Women's World Cup.
Yeah.
And I think it's a privilege for our brands to be part of that journey. So very, very excited about that. You know, so.
Brilliant, thank you. And finally, I am joined by Kaveri from Mastercard. Kaveri has very kindly joined us on stage today, having flown in on the red eye from India. over the course of the evening, so thank you so much for being here. Mastercard are clearly synonymous with having a very wide-ranging portfolio of partnerships, and actually much more recently, very wide breadth of partnerships within women's sport as well. So you have Arsenal FA, you have Copper Women, you have the Rugby World Cup. It's extensive.
Go on and on.
Yeah. Please tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so marketing and sponsorships for the region, for Asia Pacific. Vicky's done half my job, but essentially spent about $250 million on sponsorships. And women in sport is a big deal for us. And I think we'll talk more about it, but it's not just because it's the right thing to do. It's, I think as Vicky yourself said, it really makes for good economics. And I think that's really something that we focus on. We're a commercial organization, as are all of us here. And yeah, really lucky to be doing what I'm doing and to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Sinead, I want to start with you down there, please. The LPGA has just been on such a trajectory in recent years. You've partnered with them since 2019. I think it's fair to say women's golf is just absolutely having a moment at the, right now. But why did you decide to partner with them back in 2019? And how has that partnership evolved for you over the course of those 4 years?
Yep. So when we landed on golf, it was all about finding a platform that enabled us to drive understanding around the purpose and the proposition of our firm. So we were really looking for something that was innovative, that had some clean air around it, and also had engaging channels for us to be able to reach our target audience in a very targeted way. So the LPGA was a no-brainer for us because we, as from a values perspective, our organisation is very focused on a diverse workforce. Our colleagues are very diverse, our clients are very diverse, and therefore being able to engage with that audience through the LPGA in addition to the PGA Tour and create something that was unique for Aon, that gave us the ability to educate and drive understanding around our values and our propositions. It enabled us to really drive cut through for us, which was ultimately most important. And when we think about the LPGA, while 5 years ago they were, global and had a number of partners, they're now even more kind of invested in, they're even more visible, they've got even more credibility behind them, and it's just been amazing to be part of that journey and to see other brands really stepping up and investing in them in the right way. And from a colleague perspective, there is just huge pride around the fact that we invested in both the male and the females equally, both not just from a prize money perspective, but how we invest and activate. So our broadcast integrations, we really raise the bar there. How we deliver content, how we invest in our ambassadors. There's just real parity between the two, which is something that we're consciously thinking about as we go through, as we think about the diversity of our client and colleague base.
Thank you. And you mentioned it there, but I think parity, when I consider your program and what you're doing at Aon, parity is the word that really strikes me. And I know that's what you've striven for, since 2019, but it's very, very clear. I loved as well that you touched on actually what you're doing internally as well at Aon and the fact that your employees are very engaged with the program. So the other element of the program that is very unique is your own IP that you've created in terms of the risk-reward challenge. And I think this is an amazing example of if you want to work with a rights holder, but they don't necessarily have the rights that you want to connect your brand with at that time. Of course, there's a huge opportunity to work with them to build your own IP and build something totally unique. So that's what you guys have done in terms of the risk-reward challenge.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that's working for you?
Yep, so a season-long challenge which exists across the Tour and the LPGA. So taking a kind of a whole for each of the tournaments, aggregated score, having a winner at the end of the season with $1 million, and each week working with the broadcast partners to create broadcast integrations, social, digital content, and then overlaying that with our ambassadors and being able to really create storytelling. We are focused on kind of being in the business of better decisions, and that is at the heart of everything we do. So really talking about our ability to kind of give clarity and confidence to our clients to make better decisions. So using the natural parallels between being on the golf course and making decisions and being in business and making decisions, which is highly relevant for our target audience. And I think that from an LPGA perspective versus the tour, while there's parity between the two, they're very different and they're at very different stages. So with the LPGA, we're able to be more test and learn, kind of evolve, kind of change how we approach it year on year, because they're continuing to grow and develop, and they are, working hand in hand with us to make sure that we are maximising the opportunity both from them, for a league perspective, the players, and then ultimately delivering return for Aon.
So is it fair to say that almost with the LPGA, there's more opportunity for innovation there with you as well, and to really work with them to carve out that narrative for Aon?
I think so. It's more of a challenger brand, right? So they are more engaged. They do want to learn. They do want to kind of show up differently and kind of have a very different position than they've historically had. And I think the other side of it is, from a player's perspective, they are all, individual business people. They don't have huge teams around them, so they're more engaged. They want to kind of learn. They want to kind of help and provide their feedback proactively. So that feedback loop and looking at our kind of marketing metrics really just helps us evolve and kind of test and learn and kind of continue to see that year-on-year impact.
Amazing. So we mentioned at the top about commercial return. There is an amazing stat that came out of the LPGA last year that actually they saw on average brands were receiving a 400% return on their investment for their partnership spend with the LPGA, which I think is phenomenal, and again really talks to the marketing effectiveness that we can drive from women's sport. What does success look like for Aon with this partnership, and how are you achieving it?
So for us, it's, I guess, from a softer side, making sure that we're enhancing the sport and the LPGA and making them more commercially viable and kind of bringing more partners in, because that's something that's really important, right from our CEO all the way down. So that's kind of where we kind of at the heart of everything. But then behind that, we have a very robust measurement framework. So we really focus on our long-term metrics. So we have our golf questions integrated into our brand health survey. We carve out our brand strength model to focus and isolate the impact of golf and really see what each of those partnerships is delivering for us. And then that's kind of more from an annual basis. And then as we think about it from a week in, week out perspective, all of the short-term metrics, so engagement and relative effectiveness around our channels, and using that data to be able to provide feedback to partners around what's working, what's not, what we want to dial up, what we want to dial down, and then ultimately taking them new ideas around where can we do more, where do we want to kind of really push them to be able to innovate and drive impact, not only for us, but ultimately to enable them to showcase the opportunity that they have. And I think the LPGA is an incredible partner, and they are truly global when you look at their players, their tournaments, and how they show up. And I think that's, from a global organisation perspective, incredibly impactful for us, and definitely something that enables us to reach both a client and colleague base that we hadn't historically been able to.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So Chiro, moving on to you, thinking about your partnership here with FIFA, and actually I know you're on the start of that journey at the moment. I believe that you signed it 90 days before the start of the Women's World Cup, which I can imagine gave a few people some quite sleepless nights, but that's phenomenal, everything that you pulled together in that time. How did you use that partnership on a global level to authentically connect with people across the world in your different markets?
Yeah, so when we look at our portfolio of brands in personal care, if I really look at overall Unilever and then look specifically at personal care, I think we've got a very iconic portfolio of brands. If you think of names like Dove, Rexona, Lifebuoy, Lux, for instance, all operating in very highly penetrated categories. In that sense. And I think one of the things that we've been looking at all the time is that, we've got such iconic portfolio of brands. How do we make our brands part of popular culture? And I think that's the overarching theme, saying, get our brands as part of popular culture. And we've been doing, sponsorships and stuff for a while now. When you look at what we've been doing with the Premier League, with Rexona, it's called Sure in UK, with Man City and Chelsea, for instance. We've been doing some stuff with ECD. We've done stuff in cricket and other sports. So it's not that it was something new for us, but we said, okay, how do we start scaling this? It's happened, etc. And there isn't really a bigger passion, which cuts across all parts of the world than football. So that was really the starting point, saying we need to do something fast. And if you look at in terms of the portfolio itself, we've got Rexona and Dove, the female portfolio of brands, where Rexona's got this amazing program called the Breaking Limits program, where they're working with schools and NGOs, for instance, in terms of about movement and trying to get people to get moved, etc. Dove's got the self-esteem project. So our brands were lending itself to a lot of these programs, and we thought there was an opportunity for us to scale. So, looking at the historical element, looking at our iconic portfolio brand, looking at what's out there from an opportunity perspective, looking at with sport, we said, okay, this probably makes sense. And yes, it was a sort of a race to catch the Women's World Cup. And in retrospect, I don't think there could have been even a better way for us to enter football. I think it's probably the best way for us as Unilever as an organization and our brands to start really associating with something which is so big. So very, very excited about that.
And so you touched on the Breaking Limits program that you had anyway with Rexona.
Yeah.
How have you built that into your program of activity for the World Cup?
Again, great question, Vicky. And obviously, this program has been around for a while. We've had this from 2021 odd, and it's there across 9 markets right now. And essentially, we've got 2 elements to the program. There's an element working with schools in terms of ensuring how do we start getting, as part of the physical and health education, how can we start getting elements of movement and sport as part of the curriculum? So there are training modules. We also work with a lot of NGOs across the world, very closely with them in terms of how can we create content which can help train coaches to then get more people to get more active. Essentially, that's really the proposition. Must mention, I know Harish referenced it when he spoke about the TikTok, and he was speaking about TikTok Sport, but even during the World Cup, for instance, we had an amazing partnership with TikTok where we had 17 odd influencers come down and create content for Rexona, which was all around this entire thing of movement and getting more women to play. And now what we're doing is we've sort of extended this a bit with FIFA now because of this proposition, and we've got a program called Girls Can, which is part of the Breaking Limits program, which is really about getting more women to play football. And that's the overarching proposition for Rexona. I think Rexona with FIFA is really about getting more women to play football, and that's essentially what we want to try and encourage. And it's there across 9 markets, and the latest market that we've got on board right now is India. It's a personal favorite for me, have come from India. And when you talk about India, for instance, the first sport that comes to you is cricket, right?
Yeah.
And even when you talk about cricket, for instance, it's men's cricket. So, if you think of it from a thing, there's cricket, there's men's cricket, women's football, it really doesn't exist in this thing. So very excited that we've slowly started doing that, working very closely with FIFA on their grassroots project, trying to see how we can work with them on that front. So again, very early stages, we've just started, but exciting times, and really looking forward to the runway of stuff that we have over the next few years.
Amazing. And I believe there is a video we might be able to see
about
Breaking Limits.
Yes, Breaking Limits. This is the Breaking Limits video for India. I just wanted to play it out. We've just about launched it.
मुझे भी फुटबॉल खेलना था, पर मेरा मम्मी ने मुझे हमेशा कहती थी ये लड़कियों का गेम नहीं है, मेरा सपना है फुटबॉल. They don't see many girls playing, so they feel like there is no future in playing football.
There is this societal perception that girls can't play. If you can't see the problem, you can't change the problem.
हमें अपनी लड़की को खेलने के लिए मना नहीं करना चाहिए. यदि हम लोग ही मना करें तो लोग कैसे आगे बढ़ सकते हैं.
If we want to get to future FIFA World Cups, we need to grow the sport. We need girls to know that football is for them. This is just the beginning. We're not done yet.
Yeah. very proud of the team that's worked on this one. And, of course, we have similar programs in other parts of the world. We've done an amazing work with Brazil on this one, and, happy to talk to anybody about that after this across markets. But very proud of the fact that, we picked India as a market where cricket is so big, and, women's football, 1%, some of the numbers are staggering, and, the fact that the brand is doing something. And I think this is the larger element, it's what's the societal impact, what's the societal impact that the brand is doing. It's just not about saying, let's put our logo on this sponsorship and see what happens. And I think that's what makes it a big deal for us.
Yeah, a couple of things from that. I mean, firstly, I got goosebumps watching it. Really, really powerful in terms of the message. Couple of things I picked out of it. If you can't see the problem, you can't change the problem. And I think that's what we as brands in the room really have the opportunity to change some of these, fundamental problems. And that's, what an opportunity that is there for us. And then also, this is only just the beginning. And it's only just the beginning of what you're doing in India, but it's also only just the beginning of the program, and hopefully, everything else that can fall out the back of that.
No, 100%. And the thing is, at the end of the day, this is really not a, let's slap the logo next to that rights holder and see what happens. It's just not about that. It's not a badging exercise. As our CMO says, it's not a badging exercise. It's integral to everything that we want to do on the brand. So it's not that thing saying, look, we're going to do all of this, and guess what? We're going to do a bit of FIFA also. It actually cuts across all our projects in terms of what we want to do. Whether the innovation, for instance, the way we go to market when we look at it. And obviously, as you mentioned, this is the first year for us. We have a runway of tournaments ahead of us. We also have the 2027 Women's World Cup, and I think that's we are really looking forward to saying, okay, what is that change that we've done over the next 4 years just by this association itself? So that's the pipeline, and everybody's looking at it very closely across the entire organization. So it's got a spotlight on us, which is good and bad.
Yeah, can be a good thing sometimes a hindrance. Amazing. Thank you so much, Chiro. Coming to you, Kaveri, as I mentioned up top, you guys go all in. Yes. I think when we think of sports partnerships, music partnerships in general, you guys, it's all or nothing. Yeah. What is your all-in strategy for women's sport?
Yeah. And before that, I feel Chiro's pain because we just signed the Cricket World Cup not too long ago. So I'm going, when can I go back and start working on that? But yes, like you said, Vicky, it really is an all-in strategy, and precisely to the points that Chiro you've made. Not about slapping a logo. It's not just putting money behind these sponsorships. So we have a very well-rounded, very well-rounded portfolio overall of sponsorships across 11 passion points, because those are the passion points we've identified, to connect with consumers and to connect consumers with, for Mastercard, it's about priceless possibilities, limitless possibilities. And when it comes to women in sport, we've seen what we wanted to do is, of course, to firstly have that diversity. So it's across tennis, football, golf, rugby, so on and so forth. And I can talk extensively about rugby. I know we only have 7 minutes now. So having that diversity, but also going in early on enough. So we don't wait for validation, for mainstream validation to come through. Of course, every move is a calculated move. We have to do that. But at the same time, going in there and really saying, okay, what can we do to elevate? What can we do to change the rhetoric? And how can we make this a multi-tiered approach, when we're talking about activation? So to give you an example, and I too have a video, I hope I can play it, but in the case of cricket in India, when we signed with the Board of Control for Cricket in India, the entire domestic series, in India, cricket is essentially a male sport. But then, what are we doing if we're not breaking that stereotype? So we really went out and, of course, also acquired the women's series, but we also activated it extensively. We ran a campaign called Don't Take Women Lightly. Essentially, that's really what the campaign meant. And, the stadiums were sold out, which is testimony to the fact that people are, the audiences are interested. But that campaign was really a clarion call. And what we did when we activated the women's cricket series was a clarion call for, also for the country to start to take these superstars a lot more seriously than we have so far. Same with rugby. And it was fascinating. So we were the global founding partners of, World Rugby's Women in Rugby program. And it's all about youth participation. So again, it's not just we're going to go put money behind, Rugby World Cup, so on and so forth. We're also inaugural partners of WXV, which is all the rugby, competitions that will happen outside of the World Cup years, beginning in 2023. But we go to the grassroots levels. We go to girls. There's data that says that girls in sport, by the time girls get to mid-school, girls who are interested in sport and even STEM are going to most probably drop out because either there's lack of confidence, they don't have role models. How do we address those challenges, right? That's really what we think about. And so that's really our strategy. It's to go all in. I think there's tremendous room for improvement. There always is. But we're trying to see what best we can do. And we've been very long-standing partners of, football, rugby, so on and so forth. Various companies.
You're so right. And I loved what you said there about taking the risk early, and it's not necessarily a risk if it's calculated. And I think all the data points are there now for us. But yeah, absolutely, that, if you're not in women's sport, the time is now.
Yeah. Sorry, just a data point on that I forgot to mention. So Women's Rugby World Cup New Zealand, November 2022, the attendance in stadium was 3.3x of the Rugby World Cup 5 years prior. And also in terms of people tuning into broadcast and streaming channels was just unprecedented. So yes, the time is now.
And that leads really nicely, actually, onto my next question for you, which is when you have these 11 pillars and you have such a breadth of passion points that you're connecting to with Mastercard, what do you think is unique about women's sport?
From an opportunity standpoint, I think we've spoken enough about it, right? Like, firstly, why would you ignore half of the world's population? 49.7% to be precise. So I think that's what's amazing. What's truly unique, and I think I love that as a marketer, is that, it's a very loyal and very passionate fan base. And these fans feel very special affinity towards brands that support women's sport, right? So again, why would you not tap into that? And when it comes to, again, what we do, and, I wouldn't say we do it uniquely. Honestly, I think the first order of business is for us to go all in, and then we can think about the uniqueness of it. But we think about accessibility, we think about diversity, which I've already mentioned, and really bringing attention and visibility to the sport. So again, cricket is one of the examples. Also, if you can just play the video in a second. So with Rugby World Cup, this is the Australia team with our agency partners, Octagon, created a Player of the Match trophy. It was a Sonic trophy. And it really embodies the spirit of, women coming together in what is, of course, a very, very competitive play, but really the spirit of resilience, collaboration, teamwork, and I think the video will do far better justice than my words will, so why don't we play that if we can?
Our love of rugby isn't defined by the final score, but rather the breathtaking moments of the match. These moments are priceless, and ones that Mastercard wanted the world to never forget. For the Women's Rugby World Cup in New Zealand, we transformed the Player of the Match trophy from a silent keepsake on a shelf to a powerful memento that will speak to generations of female rugby players to come. Working closely with Māori designer Nicola Tikiri, we created a trophy that reflected the most powerful voice in the community and the keeper of memories, the Kaikāranga. We then worked to curate a priceless story of each match through the voices of those who witnessed it live, the fan passion, plays that changed the game, and the electric energy of the stadium was married to the voice of the brand.
Okay, I was only allowed a minute, so thank you for giving me that minute. But it's things like these that are really also, it's also about nuanced storytelling.
Yeah.
This could have just been a keepsake, but it's something that has actually blended so many voices, and the voice of the most powerful, woman in any community, in the Maori community, in any family. So I think those are the kind of things we want to do to lend greater meaning to women in sport, beyond just investing money, which of course we do.
Thank you so much. Wow. Well, thank you all for being here, for sharing those very valuable insights. I've got about 30 seconds to wrap up, so I'm going to try and communicate some of the things that I've taken out of that. I think be bold, go all in with your strategy. I think we really have the opportunity to shape the narrative when it comes to women's sport. That's, for us as marketeers, there's such a storytelling angle that we can play, and as we've just kind of experienced with Mastercard, pushed forwards with that. It's a space for innovation, for doing things differently. And I think it's also a space, and you touched on it, Kaveri, where purpose and profit can perfectly coexist. So it doesn't have to just be all about purpose, even though, of course, that must be at the core. Actually, it's a really commercially viable opportunity for us as marketeers as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. We are out of time.
Thank you.